Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Podcaster Hour. Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. My name is Ian Osgray. I'm from the Confident Live Marketing Academy, and I'm your host today. Really excited to talk to you today about how to launch a podcast from your live video shows. I'm going to give you an overview of all the different steps to launching a podcast from your live show. So I'd love to know from you watching, are you thinking about launching a podcast, or have you already done it? I would love to know. In fact, why don't you just put in the comments what your ideas are for your podcast, I should say. Let me know in the comments, and also let me know where in the world you are watching from. I can see lots of fabulous people here. We've got Marco watching, saying hi. We've got Fuyans was saying good morning, Ian. It is actually afternoon here, but we're morning, evening, afternoon all around the world. Thank you, Katie, for putting this in the comments. Make sure you put a Q in front of your questions. That's really important so that I can distinguish between the comments, the lovely comments, and the questions, because I do want to make this as interactive as possible. So that's great. I can see John Watkins is saying, looking forward to this podcast right on time. So John, let me know what you're thinking about for your podcast. Tim says yes, and the crowd goes wild. Of course, the crowd goes wild. Team The New You says about to relaunch in Florida. So what are you about to relaunch? I'd love to know. That would be great. And Frank says, thank you. Thank you for this. Love the spectacles. Yes, these are actually quite new. It's quite new spectacles. Drew says, already launched it inside the box. Awful. So, as Katie says here, are you thinking of starting a podcast? If so, what is the topic? We'd love to know. My job here is to help you launch that from your live show. The point of this show is really to help you repurpose your live show into a podcast. And with Ecamm Live, it is so easy now. I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about that, how you can do that. Before I do that, I just want to let you know what we're going to be talking about on the next few shows. This is actually the last one before the holidays. I'm having a 2-week break. I hope you forgive me. But then in January, we'll be right back with some more episodes. So episode 3 is going to be on January the 11th. That's Podcasting 101, and I've got my good friend Colin Gray. Now, we had to pre-record some of that episode, so it's going to be mainly a live episode, but I will be bringing in Colin as pre-recorded because he lives in Australia at the moment. He's originally from Scotland, but just because this would be like 3 a.m. for him or 4 a.m, so I thought that would be nicer if we did that. So that is basically everything to do with podcasting, including the tech, the gear, and the planning. January 18th is all about gear and tech, which I know is one of the topics that so many of you are interested in. So we will be covering that as well. January the 25th is how to create successful run of shows. So I've got my run of show here. I've actually printed it out. I've also got it in front of me on my teleprompter. We're going to be talking about that. And then on February the 1st, audio, how to sound awesome on your podcast. I've got my good friend, Mike Russell from Music Radio Creative, who's going to come on and talk about not just the tech. We'll be talking about microphones and audio gear, but also just how to sound amazing. We will also cover audio branding as well. So if you're looking at creating some really cool intros and outros, like the one I've got at the beginning of this show, which was created by Music Radio Creative, then that's what we're going to be talking about. That. And then there are some more episodes after that as well. Now, the reason I started late, there is a weird, I don't know what it is, like some kind of insect that just flew down there. And I just put my headphones on about a minute before I was about to start, and I got stung. Yeah, it's looking a bit red, my ear. So, yes, I'm going to have to get something on that in a bit. There we go. So hopefully I'll be all right. I'm alive. So let me go. So we've got Frank watching from Mexico. We've got Gideon watching from Dubai. Rob watching from Scottsville, Arizona. Drew from Cincinnati. It's awesome to see you guys. Thank you so much. So awesome to see you, Drew, Rob, Gideon, and Frank. We've got Pat Flowers, from Katy, Texas. We've got Jazz Greer saying, thinking for 2021 from Derby in the UK. Laurie saying morning. Scott is watching from Charlotte, North Carolina. Tim is asking, should we convert the Tim and Jim show into a podcast? Well, it's a very good question. So the answer to that is it kind of depends, Tim. It depends on what your aim is. So this is a really, really good question. I'm just going to put it up there. And just before we get on with the main heart of the show, I think that is a really awesome question. We should all be asking that. So just because you can doesn't mean you should. Just because it is so easy now to convert your live show into a podcast using Ecamm Live, and I'm going to show you a little bit more about that, doesn't mean that you should do that. It kind of really depends on what you're wanting to do for your live show. So obviously, if you convert your live show into a podcast, you do need to think about your podcast listeners when you create your live show. Because as I said last week, and if you missed last week's episode, I highly recommend watching it. I mentioned last week that you have to think of 3 different audiences when you are broadcasting live and you are thinking about making it into a podcast. You've got your live viewers, obviously. They're the people that are watching now. So you've got your now viewers, you've got your future viewers, which are your replay audience, and you've got your podcast listeners. And it's more difficult to cater for your podcast listeners because, of course, you've got to think about converting the visuals into the audio. So if I put something on the screen, I've got to describe that for my podcast listeners. Now, most of the time, that's absolutely okay. But as I think I said last week, I had Annette McDonald on my other show maybe about a month ago. Now, she's the co-founder of a tool called Easel. It's a graphics editing tool. And so she was giving a walkthrough of that tool, which was amazing. But we had to make sure that our podcast listeners were catered for as we went through. So I had to talk about to describe on the screen. So it really depends. That's one thing you've got to think about. It's also whether you want to think about going out to your podcast listeners. You want to think about broadcasting it out to a different audience as well. So think about that. Wes says, good afternoon, watching from Ohio. I love Ohio. Well, I've only ever been to Cleveland, which I really enjoyed there. We've got India here saying New Jersey here will be launching a podcast in January for the New Jersey LGBT Chamber of Commerce to spotlight lesbian professionals. Awesome. So that's something that you're thinking of doing. That's great. Hope we can help you. We've got Marco watching from Chile in South America. Hope you're doing well. And Team Review says fitness lives and podcasts. Wow, I can see so many people here who have got the plan in place. So Elizabeth is saying prospecting growing areas and first-time house buyers opportunities. Great. Yes. I do deserve a break. Thank you, Katie. I just need a bit of a break. That's great. One Homes Made. Hi from North Carolina, thinking of podcasting in January. This is great. And Brad says, I'm relaunching and rebranding my podcast Beyond Adversity on January the 1st. Very interesting, incorporating live video into the relaunch. Okay, right. Well, that's awesome. I want to get on with what we're going to talk about today. So the first thing I want to talk about is what you actually need to do this. And so this is what I think you need. First of all, at the heart of the system, you don't have to use Ecamm Live, but obviously this is the Ecamm show. But not only that, this is one of the easiest ways to convert your live show into a podcast. Not only that, it also gives you one of the best qualities and ease of use as well. So Ecamm Live is the heart of the workflow that I'm going to be talking about today and in all the shows as well. But as well as that, you do need some other things. You will need a podcasting editing tool, unless you're wanting to do the lazy route, which is to just strip the audio out completely and put that onto you and to launch that as a podcast. So you're not clipping it at all. But I would recommend using a podcast editing tool, or you could hire a podcast editor, and I will go through some of those as well. The next thing that you definitely need is a podcast host. This is somewhere where your MP3s will sit and also where the podcast feed will be hosted as well. So most people don't know this or don't need to know this, but when you subscribe to a podcast, the podcast tools, it could be like Apple Podcasts or something like that, or Google Podcasts or Spotify or whatever, they will all require a podcast feed. And I'm going to talk about that next episode in a bit more detail. But basically, that is a podcast feed that will be hosted by your podcast host. So you do definitely need that. That's really, really important. Now, the next thing is optional. You don't technically need a website. A lot of podcast hosts these days will suffice. They'll actually give you a page that can effectively be your website. But I do think it's a good idea to, if you already have a website, you can put your podcast episodes on your website, and also give away where you can allow people to subscribe to your podcast as well as your live show. And then finally, a repurposing tool or a repurposing set of tools. Because at the end of the day, that's not it. You've got then what to think about repurposing it into maybe other things, maybe into a blog and that type of thing. So let's just go through those again. Ecamm Live is your main tool for the live show and converting it into audio. Then you need to edit it using a podcast editing tool, or you need to give it over to an editor. Then you need a podcast host, a website, and repurposing tools. So that's what you need. But I until recently, I had it much harder than that. It was a lot more difficult to do that. So I went live in Ecamm Live, and at the same time, I had Adobe Audition running in the background to record my audio. Now, although I could have done that in Ecamm Live, the problem was at the time that if I'd just taken the audio from Ecamm Live, it would have been my audio and my guest's audio combined. So I'll talk a little bit about the advantages and disadvantages of recording them separately in a minute. But that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to separate my audio from my guest's audio. So I was recording it into Adobe Audition, and at the same time, I was getting my guest into another service called Zencastr. There are loads of tools like this that would allow me to record the guest on their end. So Zencastr would record their audio on their end, on the guest side, and then it would get emailed to me. I could then put that into Adobe Audition, and I'd have my audio and my guest's audio all at the same time. So that was step number 2. Step number 3, though, I needed to route, depending on how you pronounce that, my audio and Ecamm's audio into Adobe Audition. And so I had to use some complicated software called Loopback. Oh my goodness, it was complicated. But now I do not need to do that. I do not need to do that at all. So I can use Ecamm Live much more easily. So there are some other ways, though, I do want to talk about. I should have had this up before, but just give me a second while I load that up. So there are some other ways you can get your audio from a live video into a podcast. And so I want to give a big shout out to repurpose.io. So this is repurpose.io. And this is a service that allows you to take your Facebook Lives and publish these into a podcast. So what you can do here is you can connect your Facebook account, your YouTube account, and it will watch out for your live videos. When it sees a live video, say on Facebook, it will then, once you've finished that, it will then strip out the audio and send that to, for example, to Dropbox, or even publish it to your host as well. So it auto converts your podcasts to videos, and so you could do it the opposite way around as well. But what we're talking about here is to auto publish Facebook Lives into a podcast as well. So if you're wanting a really quick and easy way, then repurpose.io does it. The disadvantage, though, is that you've got no control over that. You're basically going to send the whole episode. And so one thing that I really like is to be able to take the audio and then repurpose that, maybe slice the beginning and the end off, and then put some audio onto that as well. So that's what I do. I really like that, and it works really well. So let's see if we've got any other questions. Yeah, I'm a bit concerned about my ear. I don't know what it is. There shouldn't be any bugs at this time of year, in the cold north of the UK. Tim Storm says, shout out to Annette McDonald at Easel. And Fernando says, thanks from Colombia. Awesome. Right. So David says, I'm going to talk about this shortly. David says, I love the ISO audio tracks, makes podcasting so much easier. So if you don't know what I'm talking about here, don't worry. I'm going to talk about that shortly because it is so good. Truth Still Matters says, do you have to purchase ISO? That's a really good question. I can't remember whether this is on the pro version or on the standard version. Katie, maybe if you could just remind me about that, just put that in the comments. I think it might be on the pro version of this. And Paul says, can this video be viewed later? Absolutely. There's always a replay for all of these, so you can absolutely do that. So thank you, Paul. Okay. So the other option, as well as using a service like repurpose.io, is that in Ecamm, you also get the video for later. You could download that, or you could download the video from Facebook or YouTube. The quality isn't quite so good. Something to think about there. Right, so let's get on with the full workflow. This is what I'm going to be talking about today. Keep those questions coming. But the first thing that you need to do is sort out your plan. And we talked about this last week. So if you've missed episode 1, then think about that. Then you need to think about audio branding, which I'll talk about in a sec. Then create your show on your podcast host, which I'll talk about. Then submit your podcast to to the various channels. Create a trailer, book a guest, enable audio ISO, produce your show, edit your audio, upload to host, promote, and repurpose. And if I went too quick there, don't worry. That's what we're going to be talking about here. So let's do it. Let's talk about that. So we talked about the plan last time. But let's just talk about audio branding. I'm going to be talking to Mike Russell in a few weeks' time, who is the co-founder of Music Radio Creative. But basically what you need to do here is think about some audio branding for the beginning and the end. Now, this doesn't have to be music. This could be just you saying, welcome to the show, that kind of thing. But what you can do is you can get a voiceover artist to speak to basically introduce your show for you, or you could introduce the show for you as well. You can convert that into a video. So very similar to what I've got here. I'll just play you the first bit of this. If you were here at the beginning, you'd have seen this.
Welcome to the Podcaster Hour from Ecamm, helping entrepreneurs, business owners, and live.
Okay, you get the idea. That basically is some music with a voiceover artist, and that's introducing my show. Then what I did is I took that audio, put it into a video editor like Wave Video is what I used there, and I made that into a video. But there are loads of other options. You could use a service like Epidemic Sound, so you can find some tracks here. This costs around $10, $12 per month, that kind of price. It's all of the tracks here are royalty free, and then you can get a voiceover over the top. You could get that, say, from the likes of Fiverr, or you could use one of these guys here from Music Radio Creative. So what I love here is if we go to the filter here, we can go to let's go to, is it creatives? No, maybe it's podcasters. I just want, I know where it is. It is voiceovers. There we go. And then we can go to, we can actually filter it there. So we can actually filter by male and female voices. So let's say we want a female voice, and we also want to have a British one. Okay, so these are all the female British voices, and then we can just play these and get an idea of what they sound like. So you could do that, or you could get them to do the whole audio branding for you, beginning and end with the music. So that's one thing that you can do. You don't have to do this. You can keep it really, really simple. You could just have some music. You could just go straight into it. But I just think audio branding just gives it a little bit more of a professional feel and just more fun, I think. So I don't know what you think about audio branding, but that's the first thing that I would think about doing, audio branding. And then that brings me on to something that's really important, is to then create the show on your podcast host. So I'm going to go over here to my podcast host, which is Captivate FM. is a really, really nice tool. But there are lots and lots of ones here. So let's go here. And what I'm going to do is, let's see if I can go here. How do I actually create a new show? Edit show. No. There's always something. Where is add a new show? There we go. So I'm going to create a new podcast in Captivate. So whatever host you're going to use, doesn't matter. It's going to be a similar kind of thing here, but I'm going to create a new podcast here. So let's just say this is going to be called the Podcaster Hour. Subtitle. I'm not going to use that for this. There's no need to do that, but this could be something like launch your podcast with Ecamm Live. My name, Clark Kent. No, it isn't. It's Ian Anderson Gray. Let's just put that up there so you can see my email address. So I'm just going to put something like this for now. Okay. Is this a private show? No, in this case it isn't. So next is for some reason that doesn't like that. Why don't you like that? Okay, let's just do that. So now it's asking for an image. So I can skip this, and I think I will do it at the moment. But what they're requesting here is to go 3000 by 3000 pixels. So JPEG or PNG. So, but it needs to be less than 500K. So just check that out. So let's just move on to the next one. So the description, maximum 4,000 characters. You are allowed to put links in there as well. So I'm not going to put anything in there for now, but I will do that to follow. Categories. So these are important. So let's have a look. Oh my goodness, it's going mad here. So let's say we want business and we want marketing. Okay, second category. Let's go. What else do we want? Just maybe business here. And I'm not going to do a third category. Maximum number of podcasts on feed. So we've got quite a few things here. Now, this is really, really important here. You need to make a choice whether you're going for episodic with seasons, or serial. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about this with Colin in the next episode. But you need to think about how your show is going to be. Are you just going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, all the way up to 100 and beyond? Or are you going to break it up into different seasons? Now, I know that Colin Gray is a big fan of seasons. I personally don't do it in seasons. I do it in different, every episode is a different theme. So you just need to think about it. Do you want to break it up into seasons of, say, 10 episodes, 20 episodes, and then have a break and then come back to it? Or do you just want to keep going? I'm a fan of doing it in a serial format, but episodic formats are becoming much more popular these days. So you might want to think about doing that. I'm going to put serial. Does your podcast include explicit language? So it really, again, depends on your podcast. If at all possible, make it clean, primarily because it just means that it's going to be, the reach is not going to be hindered by the likes of Apple Podcasts. So as long as you don't have any offensive language or any swearing, click no. But otherwise, yes, click yes. And of course, you can override that on a per episode basis. I'm going to click on clean, maximum episodes on feed 200, and I'm going to change the publish time to 8 o'clock that's going to be every Friday. Okay, in my case, my time zone is going to be London, wherever it's gone. There we go. Let's confirm my feed. Okay, so that is now my feed. Let's create my podcast. So now I've created my live show. My podcast, not my live show. So now I can go on to publishing that. Now, I wouldn't recommend that yet. What I'd recommend is to upload some episodes. But I just want to show you how easy this is. So I can publish an episode just like that by uploading an audio file like that. But we haven't got any of those yet. So let's now go to this one now. Where's it gone? Podcast distribution. So It says at the top here, before you submit your podcast, you need to change your cover art. So it's saying that I need to put that out there. I obviously haven't at the moment. But what I can do here is once I've done that, I can now submit my podcast to Apple Podcasts. I can do it, submit it to Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Podcast Index, Player FM, Deezer, Garner, Savan, Stitcher, and quite a few others as well. So you're allowed to do that. And you can also submit it to Podchaser, which I'd highly recommend. Podchaser is, well, it describes it here as the IMDb of podcasts, and it is awesome. So I will be talking about that in another episode. So that's the second thing. So planning, audio, branding, then you need to create your show on your podcast host. I put here submit to podcast channels, but probably what I'd recommend before you do that is to actually create some podcast episodes themselves. But the first thing that you'll want to do is to create a trailer. And so the trailer should be, I think, anything between 2 and 5 minutes long at the very most. And that will allow basically your potential listeners to get an idea of what your podcast is going to be about. So that is your trailer. Now it's time to book your guest, unless it is a solo show. So what I recommend here is to use a service like Calendly. And I'm going to just show you this, what I've got on my system here. Let's just get it up here. So I've got this for my Confident Live marketing show. Okay, so let's just go here. Okay, so what I've got here is, because my show is an hour long, I make sure that we meet 15 minutes in advance. So the whole thing is 75 minutes long. So I've got this set for 11 o'clock on Tuesdays. So it's 15 minutes before that, because I want to meet up with my guest 15 minutes before. So that is 11 till 12. And then on Thursdays, the live show starts at 4. So we meet 15 minutes beforehand. That's what I have there. And then I ask some questions of my guests. So I've got my their name, email address. I need their headshot image, a short bio, website, that kind of stuff. And then what should we talk about as well? So that's really important, because what I want to do is book that in advance. And then when the live show comes, they will get reminded an hour before using Calendly. And then Calendly will also send the interview link from Ecamm to them as well. So I hope that helps. Now we've got a few questions. So I can see Katie's just pinged me to say India has a question here. Let's just see if I can find it. So India says, how much should I worry about the download limits on Captivate? Yeah, good question. So I don't think you need to worry too much about that, because they're kind of soft limits. So they're there just they want to get you started. If your podcast gets really, really popular, then you will need to upgrade to the next one. But I haven't worried about those, I think, to begin with. Unless your podcast, it's going to be really, really popular right from the start, then I would just reach out to them, because they're really, really, they've been so helpful to me as I've grown my podcast. I'm actually hoping to get Mark Asquith from Captivate on the show to talk about that. So I hope that helps. Carl says, I would love to be able to podcast. So what is stopping you, Paul? Let me know. Now, Paul Back says, what are the rules for using music? And this is a really important one. You need to make sure that you have a license for the music that you play. Now, YouTube, if you're broadcasting to YouTube, it's pretty good at listening in and knowing whether you have a license or not. If you use the service like Epidemic Sound, it makes it even easier. And that's the same with Facebook as well. So Epidemic Sound, what you can do is it will automatically know when you're using that music. And how do I explain this? Let's start again. Basically, what you do is you add all your social profiles to Epidemic Sound. And then when Facebook or YouTube finds that you're playing music from Epidemic Sound, it will let Epidemic Sound know that you've played that, but Epidemic Sound knows that you played that and it will give you the permission. I don't know if that makes any sense, but basically Epidemic Sound will work with that one. So it's really, really good. So make sure you have that permission. Paul says, I have a Van Halen song in mind. Okay, so if it is something, if it's not like a royalty-free thing like that, then there is another service that you could look into, which I will just put up on the screen now. Now, I haven't used this service myself, but it's called Lickd, Lickd, and it links particularly with YouTube. I don't know quite whether it works with Facebook. You'd need to check with them, but basically this is real artists and allows you to play actual pop music or folk music or whatever, current music, and you can get a license for it. So you have to kind of, for example, pay. So pay on a per track basis. So we've got, I don't know who we've got here, but Fatboy Slim here, for example. So so apparently we're not allowed to play that in my country. So you just basically check that out, and depending on how popular your channel is, you'll pay like a one-off fee. So check out Lickd, Lickd. It works so well. Okay, let's have a look. What have we got here? Yes, this is a better way of explaining it. It's a website, Epidemic Sound. You log in with your Facebook or YouTube account, and they give you permission to use that music on the platform. I'm sure that's this sting on my ear is getting to me. Oh my goodness! Right. Carl says, topic to talk on for an hour or so each week is what I find so hard. So, Carl, if you missed last week's episode, this is what we talked about. We talked about how you can plan it out, and why the planning is so important. I talked also about the different themes that you can have. So come up with 3 different themes for your live show. Think about one overarching theme for your show. And then if you come up with 3 themes, it makes it so much easier for you. So, Carl, listen to and watch last week's episode. That'll be really, really helpful. African Father in America says, I podcast using Ecamm and broadcast on YouTube for the last week or so. When you download your file from Ecamm, it's only video. How can you get the audio for upload to podcast distribution platforms? I'm going to talk about that right now as well. Also, how can I add captions for my live podcast stream? So podcasting is audio only, but for your live stream, there are loads of services here. What I recommend is Rev.com. Rev.com is not free, but it's inexpensive. It's $1.25 per minute. So this is what I use here. In fact, I'm logged in at the moment, but that's a really good service. There are other ones out there as well. There's Otter.ai. It's a transcription service, and there are some free ones as well. Lots of questions actually from African Father in America. Help with creating lower thirds. Do you have any resources? So actually, I mentioned Annette McDonald on the show earlier on today. Easel is good. You can also use Canva, but Easel is a great tool, which I'll just show you now. This just very briefly, because this is not quite what we're talking about here. But Easel.com, EISIL.com is a really, really cracking tool. It allows you to create, let's see if I can log in, lower thirds and lots of other graphics as well. So if I go here, and if I go to templates here, I can then search for, let's see if I can see some live shows here. Let's have a look. So let's show. So it might take a little bit of time, but basically what I can do here is they've already got some pre-made templates for, it's not working. That's typical, isn't it? Can't find them. Anyway, you create some shows here. You create a template here, and it should work really, really well, but I can't, for some reason, I can't find it. There we go. Easel.com works really, really well. So let's look now at how you can actually get the ISO recording. So you booked your guest. Now the next thing to do is to go into Ecamm Live. Let's just go to, live demo mode. Okay, so you should be able to see this now in front of you. I'm now going to do Command, comma. You can also just click on the preferences as well. Now what I'm going to do is go to audio here. And the feature here is at the bottom. So I can't change it at the moment because I'm actually broadcasting live and it's already selected. But this option here at the bottom is record isolated audio tracks. That's really, really important because what this does is it allows me to, it will actually save my track on a separate track to my guests as well. And it also will put my the movie track and the sound effects all on different tracks as well. So that is amazing. This allows you then to put it into a podcast editing tool and put it on different channels. So I hope that helps. That's what you use there. Works really, really well. So that is the ISO tracks that everyone is talking about. So let's see if we've got any more questions. Carl says, I missed signing up for your podcasting course. Will it be available again? So actually, the course that I did was launching a live show, and that was back in November. But the good news is in February next year, in February 2021, it's going to be about podcasting as well. So it's all about launching a podcast from your live show. That's going to be in February. And if you want to sign up for that, it's at iag.me/LYL. iag.me/ if I can actually, hold on. LYL. Let's put that in here. What's happening here? There we go. It always likes to this is my computer, always likes to change it to Ian. So iag.me/LYL is that. So hope that helps. So I can't, where's it gone? Where's it gone? There we go. Cool. Let's see if we've got any more questions here. So yes, as Katie says, ISO is in Ecamm Live preferences audio. So yeah. Frank asks a question. What tips do you have for making your podcast sticky, motivating listeners to come back episode after episode? And that is, I mean, that's the same kind of question really about for live shows. It's about standing out, making it really valuable. So it's lots of things really. It's about making the content really, really valuable. It's standing out, making it interesting and fun as well, and just doing something different than so many other people are out there as well. So definitely check that out. Do build community as well. And if you stick with this live show, the Podcaster Hour, we're going to be talking about that every single week, in fact. So do check out the Podcaster Hour. Sorry, I had to do that because I'm so excited by these new little overlays I've created. I'm going to have to tell you how I did that, haven't I? I've used ScreenFlow and it's so cool. I like this from Carl. Yes, if you don't post the link, it's not real. It's true. It's true. It's like if a tree falls in a forest and you're not there, it doesn't actually make a sound. So yeah, about your Go Live course, can I get that? So it will come out in February. It's comes out 4 or 5 times per year. So yeah, hope that answers your question. So what's next? Let's go back to the full workflow. So we've done the plan last week, talked about audio branding. I will be talking to Mike Russell on a future show to delve more deeply into audio branding. I've showed you how to create it on a podcast host. I've showed you how to submit it to podcast channels. Although I'll be going into more detail in a subsequent week, talking about creating a trailer, talked about booking a guest, enabling audio ISO. Then it's time to produce the show. So this is a case of just going live. And then once you've gone live, you will then have these separate tracks. So let me just see if I can locate a track from before. So let's just go over here. And I'm going to have to change the screen, aren't I? Hold on 1 second. So let's change this to share screen. Actually, let me not do that first. Let me just go to find it first in my Finder window. So Ecamm Live recordings. Right, let me share my screen now. Okay, so hopefully you can see that okay. So let's have a look here at, this was one I did the other day. So I've got a MOV file here. This MOV file is the video. So this was actually, that's not a good example. Actually, let's just go to, maybe that is the only one actually. Hold on. Okay, let's just try that one. So that's the video. That is the sound effects that I had. And then that is my main microphone. So they're on separate channels. You can see they're all 54 seconds long. Let's go back to one I did here. I think I know what the issue is. I think I just need to group these. Let's just view them by, yes, let's view it by name, creation. Sorry, let's do it by here. And want it that one. These are not good examples, are they? But anyway, what will happen is they will show you, they will basically separate the different, your audio and your guest's audio, and also the interview, the guests as well on that. So I hope that helps. Yes, John says you should be drinking some water. You're getting flush. You're so right. I think I'm going to get some water because I think I'm not feeling that great actually at the moment. Is the quality of the audio from ISO better from the stream audio? Yes, I found it particularly for the guest as well. So the guest's audio, if you just do it from the stream, then it's having to go across the interwebs through to your computer, and you download it that way. Whereas on the if you do it on the ISO, it's recorded on the guest side of things as well. So I hope that helps. Yeah, okay. So Katie says it's the same quality as the stream audio, but separated out so you can easily mix them. Yeah, I was just wondering about this, Katie. One thing I don't know about is it actually recorded physically on the guest side? What I'm not sure about is whether it's actually recorded on the interview mode on the actual guest side, or whether it's actually been recorded on the host's computer. But anyway, the quality I've found is a lot better than if you were then trying to just use one audio file for both sides. So I hope that helps. Okay, now we're on to editing the podcast. So what you can use here is you can use a tool like you could use Adobe Audition, or you could use what's the one? It's called Audacity. Or the other tool that you could use is let me just find it for you, is Alitu. So Alitu is a great tool that basically it's a web-based tool that takes your raw recordings and helps you turn them into amazing podcasts. So you basically upload these into Alitu as separate tracks, and it'll even help you edit it, put the beginning, the intro, and the outro as well, and even do audio processing. It's really, really amazing. It works well. So I definitely check out Alitu. It's really, really cool. Awesome. So I think we're going to leave it there because I'm feeling a little bit woozy for some reason. So I think I need to end it there today. Really, really sorry about that. But don't worry, we've got 8 more episodes. We've got 8 more episodes just to go through those for you. Next time, so this is on January the 11th, we're going to be talking about Podcasting 101. So this is everything that you need to know about podcasting with Colin Gray. Then on the 18th, it's Top Gear and Tech for your live shows. On the 25th is Run of Shows. And then I'm going to be bringing in Mike Russell on February the 1st, talking about how to be awesome, how to sound awesome, not just to be awesome, but also how to sound awesome on your live shows. Just a few things that I was going to mention. The only 2 things I was going to talk about extra, which I'm going to be talking about on separate shows, are the whole idea of promotion and repurposing as well. So just a few things. David says, I use Ecamm Live to go live in Spanish and English. It's amazing. Big fan of Luria from Live Streaming Pros, been a huge help. That's great. Thank you. And Katie says, hope you can lie down, Ian. Thanks, everyone. We'll keep answering questions. So I will definitely get back to you guys. I'm really sorry that I don't know what it was. I'm going to have to check, but it's that thing that stung me is just making me feel a little bit under the weather. But I want to say to you all, have a fantastic holiday if you're having a break over the holidays. We're going to be switching off for the next couple of weeks. It's been a bit of a mad year, to say the least. And 2021 is almost upon us. So I'm wishing you all the best for 2021. It can only get better. And I want to really wish you the very best for 2021. Let us know in the comments what your thoughts are for your podcast and how we can help you. We've got so many exciting things to share with you over the next few months, which is going to be great. So we'll be back on the 11th. But that is it for today. Have a fantastic time. And until next time, I encourage you to launch your podcast with success with the power of Ecamm Live. See you soon. Bye.
Thanks for watching the Podcaster Hour from Ecamm, helping entrepreneurs, business owners, and live streamers launch a podcast with success using the power of Ecamm Live. That's it for this week, but do tune in next time. See you soon, and toodaloo!